I am going to begin our recording. Let me just make sure it is recording very quickly. Yep, we are recording, so we're good there. And that's the other reason why we want to keep things specific to just higher level type of questions, because we are recording this session now, and any sort of information that is student specific would be on YouTube and things like that. So we just want to make sure we're keeping that secure for you all. We take that very seriously. All right, we're going to go ahead and begin. Let me see here. Whoops, I don't want to share. Sorry about that. We're just going to go ahead and present. Okay. Okay. So, oh, here we go. We have another one coming in. Let me admit them really quick. All right, so we're going to start out with just some introductions. I'm going to have a couple of the e-learning coaches introduce themselves. You can see a face. You should have already seen their faces, though, by now, because you have virtual sessions with them each week. But we're going to just do a quick introduction. And then we're going to just review some expectations. You can see some of the items that we'll be talking about and reviewing the expectations. Once we get to, and again, you can send in some chat messages, and Catherine or one of the learning coaches can stop me real quick and say, hey, this is a really good question. Why don't you answer this specifically? Or one of our learning coaches can answer that question. We also will have a Q&A session at the end. So if you want to hold your questions to the end to see if maybe your question gets answered throughout the session, you're welcome to do that as well. We will be going over clarifications. So there's some clarifications that I think maybe some of you did not watch that beginning of the year information session that I did regarding e-learning and what some of our, how we're setting, why New Summit set up their e-learning the way that they did. And talking about just how our program is set up, maybe again, just what our learning coaches are doing, what our grade level teachers are doing. We have some good news about printable pages. I know Rochelle Ortega and Christine Ernest were like, oh my gosh, this is a whole new world for me to know that these printed pages are there for all of our families. It's now going to save them an immense amount of time as learning coaches. We're going to talk about grades, and then we have some contact information at the end. We also are going to talk about some expectations around if certain expectations aren't being met. We do have some e-learning improvement plans that we would need to put into place just to make sure that we're helping support you guys in the best way we can, but schooling still needs to happen, and we need to ensure that adequate progress is being made for our students, attendance is being taken, and grades are still being followed. So some of those things we'll talk about. What does an improvement plan, what would that kind of look like if a student or a family needed to be put on one, because e-learning is difficult, and we know that. I've been in e-learning. I did e-learning for 17 years prior to becoming a brick and mortar principal, and I will tell you there's many misconceptions about what online learning can look like and the expectations, and it looks great on paper and the idea seems really great at first, and then you get into it and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm about ready to pull my hair out. I didn't expect it to be like this. And we have some families who've already come back to in-person learning because they realized this was a lot, and it was a lot to chew, especially if you're a working parent, you're having to work at home. It does take, it's almost like a full-time job when you're doing e-learning with your student. So those are some of the things that we're going to really get transparent about, and we're really going to talk about what the expectations are so that we know how we can better serve you and serve your student and serve just our teachers in general and serve the school as a whole. So we'll go over some of that as well. So let's go ahead and start out with some introductions. Let's start with Erin. Erin, go ahead.
Okay. I'm Erin Rivera. You need
Sorry,
to.
let me put me on mute. Sorry about that.
I'm Erin Rivera. I teach character leadership. You have to mute it. For 6th grade. I'm doing the e-learning for the entire middle school along with Stephanie Flores. So we're doing the best we can. We have a lot on our plates, but I'm trying to answer your emails as much as possible. I really love working with some of the kids and getting their emails. I love that they're self-advocating, but that is my role here at New Summit. And then this is Stephanie Flores.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Flores. I am the middle school teacher's aide and e-learning coach along with Ms. Rivera. So I'm the one who's answering a lot of the stuff kind of behind the scenes. And yeah, I've been doing a lot with the math program and things of that nature in the program. So hopefully things are getting better and you guys are enjoying the program.
Hi, I'm Rochelle Ortega. I am the learning coach for kindergarten and first grade.
Go ahead, Mrs. Ortega.
Okay, I'll keep going. Again, learning coach for kindergarten and first grade. I would say that what I enjoy the most is getting the little videos that you guys send, and I get to actually hear them counting and doing some of the activities. I enjoy being able to do our office hours and being able to meet with the families. Our discussion-based assessment for social studies, that was really fun. I really enjoyed being able to talk about the curriculum together in a whole group setting. So I like being able to incorporate things where we can bring it together, kind of like we're all together and all of the students in the class. So reach out to me if you ever need any support. I love supporting you guys, and thank you for being in my first grade and kindergarten class.
Okay, and I don't believe Mrs. Ernest is in yet, but Jamie Plemer, would you introduce yourself? I know you have decided to take on the world in education, I guess you could say. She's probably going to laugh about that. But she is wanting to, fifth grade is really wanting to support their students directly along with Mrs. Ernest. And I know Mrs. Stoddard was supporting you guys at the beginning of this year, but her job has gotten extremely busy with testing and some other duties that she's had here at the school. And so we wanted to be sure that you fifth graders were being supported, knowing that you're going to be making it to middle school next year. And so we wanted to be sure that you guys were getting some real solid support. So Mrs. Ernest, I don't believe is in yet, but Jamie Plemer, would you like to introduce yourself just real quick?
Yeah, I'm Jamie Plemer, and I've sent all our fifth grade families a couple emails, and I'm looking forward to working with all of you. So let me know if you have any questions.
They're in now. It looks like, I don't know if there's more people joining. All right, thank you so much. All right, so we're going to go ahead and just move right along. And let me get to my next slide. I don't know what's going on here. There we go. All right, review of expectations. What is attendance? So we're going to start out with the easiest piece, and that is attendance. Most of you have already done a great job at logging your attendance on the parent portal of Infinite Campus. I know that each of your learning coaches have taught you, they sent some directions on how to do that. We're also able to adjust. They actually, our learning coaches go in, they look at how much progress you've made for the week. They look at your daily logins. And then what they do is they actually can, if they notice that a student didn't do any work one day, you didn't have communication with them, there wasn't some communication regarding you did a lot of offline work that day, they may not know if you're doing attendance or not. And so they can actually trump that, and then we can adjust that in the back end on our side. I will say, for the most part, we haven't seen this be a problem yet. We've had some families not logging attendance, and so our teachers have to go in, and then they're going back in, and the learning coaches are then looking back at it. So it's really kind of a team effort for you all to be logging your attendance as well. And then we go back on a weekly basis and look at that. But NSCA, we are required to still track attendance by law, regardless of a student doing online or in-person learning. We have to ensure that students are attending school. Part of the agreement with the state, when every district and every school decided to do some form of e-learning as a choice for parents, we adopted a new policy only in effect for this year that would allow for parents to have that choice. But by us creating that new policy, we've assured the state that we will still follow the same number of hours, we will still follow the same number of days, and we still have certain requirements that are built around being an online learner in addition to being in person. So this is something we're required to do by law, and we need your help and support with that. That's the other thing about that, is that our policy still stands that if there's 4 unexcused absences in a quarter, or in a month, I mean, or more than 10, we can send you to truancy. So if we notice that there's absolutely not a lot of attendance happening, and we notice that there isn't a lot of logins, we can, any unexcused absences that way, we still can pursue truancy. So I don't do that to scare you, but I say that it is, we have to take online and e-learning just as serious as in-person learning. So ways to, and if you're not on mute, if you could mute yourself, that would be great. Okay, well, I'll go over, let me go over this first. Let me make sure everybody's on mute. Okay, I'm gonna mute this one, and we're gonna mute this one. There we go. So with regards to attendance, ways that you can log attendance are, you do need to log attendance for Monday through Friday. You still can do school on, course can still be completed on weekends, but you can't necessarily take, because our school is a Monday through Friday school, you still need to log that you're doing some school on Monday through Friday. So you still have to log any kind of attendance for 5 days a week. This is the set regular calendar that we've submitted as a school so that we can have the certain number of contact days. Can't save all the work to do on the weekend, because we still need to have something happening each and every day, Monday through Friday. But again, that doesn't mean that students can't complete work through the weekend. They can still do work through the weekend. Learning coaches can submit, you know, extensions that students can do during that time. But for the most part, all attendance needs to be done during Monday through Friday. And again, that's because it follows our school calendar. All right, and if you're not on mute, we need you to go on mute, please. Let me mute everybody. We have a couple people still joining. All right, so communication with school learning coaches or grade level, that's a way you can submit attendance as well. So if you're doing any communication that a learning coach or a teacher can see with on a daily basis, that's another way we can say, yep, this person at least had some communication with a person. They've logged in and worked through that. So communication can happen via email, by the phone, virtual, those things. Those are ways that you can also log attendance. All right, offline content or projects related to e-learning content. So you can also, if there is some work that you're doing offline, we want you to get credit for that. We're not saying you have to log in and do every single lesson that's proposed for that day, that maybe you decided, you know what, I looked at the lesson, I needed to take a little break from that being online, and my students needed to work on some projects and content that I worked with the learning coach on. But that just has to be communicated, and there has to be some form of evidence that that's what you've worked on for the day in order for us to know that you can count that as attendance. Field trips that a family takes, but not vacations. I want to be clear, vacations do not count as attendance. Please let your learning coach know what the family field trip was for that day. It may relate to something that's already being covered in the content, and you can count that as attendance as well. Any school required testing. I know that there were some students who were doing NWEA testing this morning, and those individuals are able to count attendance for today because of the amount of work that they had to do with our school testing, okay? So school required testing is counted for attendance. Virtual sessions with the learning coach, office hours or grade level connection meetings. I know a lot of our grade levels are doing those once a month or a couple times a month, where you, an e-learner, will get on and they'll meet with the class and they'll do some things with the class. That's also a way that you can log attendance, okay? There's still a couple people who are not on mute, and so I would ask that you go on to mute, please. I'm putting you on mute, but it takes me away from being able to do my presentation, and I'd appreciate if you go on mute. Thank you. If a student is unable to log in for the day, please report that absence to your learning coach. Let's say your student is sick. They're not feeling well. Somebody in the household is sick, or a parent is sick. The parent who is helping support their e-learner has something come up. We can still excuse absences for our e-learners, but we just need that communication. What we've been seeing is that some e-learners are just not logging on, and there's no communication as to why. And that's started to create somewhat of an issue where we don't know why they're not logging on or why they're not submitting assignments. And so we need that communication in order to support you so that we can log the attendance appropriately or help you to log the attendance appropriately. Okay, sorry, I'm having to look around the corner because my screen's in the way. All right, if you have any questions regarding attendance in terms of our handbook and what's an excused absence, what's not an excused absence, please go ahead and look in our student handbook for that information. Group, was there any questions that I need to answer specifically, because you said there were some on attendance?
How do they log attendance, and does it need to be AM and PM?
So they log attendance through the parent portal. There's a spot in the parent portal, and that was sent out by the learning coaches that allows you to take attendance for the day.
If we could resend that to middle school, that would be great, as you know, I didn't have that.
Sure, we can send that to middle school again. It sounds like when there was a transition between Mrs. O'Mahony and Mrs. Rivera, that was that didn't get there. So if you could just jot that down, I will make sure you guys get that.
Thank you so much.
Sure, no problem. Okay, what other questions do we have that we weren't able to answer in the chat box?
They would like live sessions daily. Can I explain that?
Oh yeah, can't do live sessions daily. So, and we'll talk more about that here in just a moment. All right, e-learning quizzes and tests. So we also have seen some students who we've noticed that some of the parents are I know it's really hard not to help your kiddos with the quizzes because they're gonna ask questions, they're gonna feel frustrated. And it's important that parents should not be helping on testing quizzes. There are some accommodations that you can make regarding a 504 accommodation. If you know that your student has a 504 and they need test questions read to them, if there's some accommodations where they can't be looking at the screen very long, and so you need to be doing more reading to them, that's fine. But prompting them on answers and giving answers, we've kind of started to notice a little bit of this, and we recognize that it's difficult not to help them. But the teachers and the learning coaches really need to know what your kids are doing and how they're doing so that we know how to adjust the curriculum or how to adjust some additional supports that you might need in order to help your student get through the curriculum. So again, you may read questions, but please don't prompt answers, and have them just give them tries on their own. One of the other things that we're noticing is that we can pull reports from our learning management system, and a lot of times parents will say, they just don't understand it, and they haven't been doing, they got through the quiz and they keep failing it. We can actually pull how long a student has actually been in the test. And we can see how long it took them to take the test or the quiz. We can also see how long and how much activity they've done in the actual tutorials and the lessons and moving through that. And I will tell you that sometimes the kids just click on through, and it's like they're answering so that they can move on to the next one. We've even seen some quizzes that have taken students like 17 seconds or 10 seconds or 5 seconds. And our learning coaches know how to pull those reports, and we'll ask that a student retake it, especially if we know that they're just kind of rushing through it and not spending time on the actual questions. So just know that we really take those seriously, just like we do in person, and we want to make sure that students are, it's just information for us on knowing how to adjust that. So it's important that we're able to get a clear picture of that. Any questions on tests or quizzes? Next. that you guys can see. So we have here, quizzes have multiple answers that are the same but have different letters listed. Example, your options A matter, B.
Yeah.
We have seen that actually, and that's something on the content side that I know we've actually talked to Colorado Digital Learning Solutions about, and they are working with their curriculum providers on making sure that those get fixed. The other thing about those types of questions, we would excuse that one as one being wrong if that is called. You just have to let your learning coach know that there were a few quizzes that had that on there.
And we adjust the grades.
And yes, and the learning coaches do adjust the grades in that case.
And we greatly appreciate the notice, because then we can adjust it for all the other students that are also in that subject when that happens. So I appreciate the open communication from all the parents that send the emails. It's
Okay.
wonderful.
All right. All right, so some parent expectations, and I am going to discuss, because I know there was a few questions in the chat box, and I'll be discussing the fact of why we don't do live in-person learning, e-learning, and I'll explain that here in just a little bit. There's really a reason why we are not doing that, specifically here at New Summit. A couple reasons why. So, but I'll cover that here in just a moment, because I know that was one of the questions in here. But I do want to go over and just review the expectations for our K-5 students first, and then I'll talk about middle school. This is your parent or legal guardian, because we know that some people are, you might have a legal guardian with you instead. So kindergarten through second, these are grades that this is very specific to them. This is going to take, and you probably already recognize this, is that in kindergarten, first and second grade, it takes, you really have to help your young learner understand what to do each day and how to do it. Our teachers are not going to be logging on daily and ensuring that your student knows how to do the lessons, because these are our lessons, and our program is set up for a self-guided, self-paced type of instructional model. Parents spend, and you probably have recognized this already, you should expect to be spending anywhere from 4 to 6 hours a day working with your students at this early stage. These kids cannot, kindergarten, first and second graders, it is very difficult for them to log on. Mom or dad goes away, works, and the student just guides themselves through the lessons. And even in grades 3 through 5, this can be extremely difficult for those kiddos. It is important to be very hands-on and be available. If that is not, if you are unable to be available and you are unable to be very hands-on with your kindergarten, first or second grader, I encourage you, strongly encourage you to find maybe a homeschool student. I did this when I was an online teacher and my kids were at home and I was having to teach them at home. I had to bring in, you know, a nanny type person who came and did schoolwork with my kids while I worked, because it is a full-time job. When you choose to do e-learning or any kind of online learning or remote learning, it is a full-time job. I know our teachers would even say the same thing when they had to teach their kids at home while they were doing teaching your kids last spring. And even when they get quarantined, they're having to teach their kids at home while they're teaching your students.
Sorry.
It's okay, there we go. And so it is a full-time job. And even if you split it up with maybe another spouse, with your spouse, or you split it up with you know, an aunt or an uncle, or you find a couple other people in the neighborhood who can help with that, please expect that in order to make sure that your student is progressing through the curriculum effectively, you need to be spending about that much time and being hands-on. You do lead offline lessons as well and help the student develop foundational reading and writing skills that are guided by the online content. So you are helping them through that process, and the content is helping guide you in how to instruct that and working with the student on how to do that. as you know, our teachers can't log on every single day in order to do that. And I will tell you, even if they were, it is not an effective model to do that unless it's somebody sitting next to them face to face. Even in other online schools, I will tell you, I've been in other online schools, they may have daily quick 20-minute virtual sessions, but it's not instructional because the instructional work happens in partnership with the parent at home in addition to the guided online work. You also have to gather and organize the course materials as needed because a kindergarten, first, or second grader is not able to do that on their own. In grades 3 through 5, it is similar. You should be expecting to spend anywhere from 4 to 6 hours a day working with your student. At the beginning of the year, I did say for all grades, it's about 3 to 5 hours per week per subject. So when we pulled an activity report, we were able to see after 3 weeks, there should be a total of a minimum of X amount of time that a student is performing activity on and offline. And luckily, we only had a couple students who were below that minimum. And so we see that for the most part, our families are really spending a lot of time doing this. But I want to be fully transparent with you guys. It is a full-time job to do this on your own at home. And we recognize that. And that's why we really are trying to figure out ways that we can work with you on how to help support you at home. You must be actively engaged and available throughout most of the day. Notice that 3 through 5 becomes a most of the day. There are ways that a 3rd, 4th, and 5th grader can start to help be a little bit more independent, help guide themselves a little bit more. But you have to still be actively engaged and available when needed for that student if they get stuck. You will also lead offline lessons, and then keeping the student motivated and on track is a key to 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade too. So finding some things that work in home, finding some rewards that work in home in order to help support that student. And then you're helping them to manage their time and helping them to become more of an independent learner as they're doing that work consistently on their own or guided by the parent as you're helping guide them and they're starting to get independent in that. Okay, questions on 3 through 5. Let's see. I don't see any other, let's see, I heard that all the NSEA curriculum can be found online, but I haven't been able to locate that. Is there a link that where we might find enrichment like math worksheets or other resources? So we do have Singapore Math. Singapore Math is, our math curriculum is found online, but you have to have a teacher's username. There's also some resources with Singapore Math if you want to do an extension of what NSCA is doing in terms of our math curriculum. Singapore Math has multiple resources of areas that you can just click on different links, and they have different parent support things for families who are doing homeschooling. And I can also have Catherine look through that, and then we can post that in our e-learning spot of our website so that you can get some more access to those additional resources. So let's see, you just got gone through telling us not to help on the quizzes. Now we need to manage the individual questions. Those 2 points do not match. They actually match in terms of at the end of every lesson, there's usually a quiz, and those are the ones where they should be able to do that themselves. Even the online quizzes for kindergarten, 1st and 2nd is developed in order to allow them to do that themselves. What I'm specifically speaking about are the actual tutorials and things like that that the students are going through on a daily basis before they get to their assignments and before they get to their quizzes. Even in their assignments, you can help them and guide them. It's just not giving them the answer. It's not writing it for them. It's not, you're just helping support them in that. So there is a little bit of a difference with that, Stephanie.
And it says if the online lessons don't work, why do the in-person kids get instruction from home?
They don't get instruction. I guess I don't understand that one. So if the online also, where's that one at?
It's right where I posted it.
Okay, if the online lessons don't work, I'm wondering what they mean by that doesn't work though. Why do the in-person kids get instruction from home? So the difference is, let me kind of back up. The difference is that our e-learners are doing a different curriculum. They're doing a different curriculum, because Florida Virtual School is a nationwide curriculum provider that has pre-made sort of like a textbook and all the workbooks and textbooks that your kids have and worksheets and so forth. But what they've done is they've created that in a virtual model where it gives instructional tools, it gives lots of different like videos and teaching tools and so forth to help guide the student and the parent through the lessons. For our remote learners, when our in-person learners go remote, for the most it's been 3 days, the teachers are loading some, not all, but they are loading some of the lessons that they would do in person into Google Classroom, and they are required to do just 1 morning and 1 p.m. virtual session with their students to make sure that they don't have any questions regarding the instruction and the information that was posted on Google Classroom. So each of the groups are doing separate things because there is no, to keep the sanity of our teachers, they can't load everything that they're doing in person for the e-learners online and it be exactly the same. It would be, and I'm telling you right now, even though other schools are doing that, I've heard over and over again where schools are starting to switch to a model that we're doing because their teachers are stressed to the max and they're losing teachers. They're losing, the instruction isn't as effective and they're really struggling with that model. So I knew that ahead of time because I've been in online learning for 17 years. And I knew that our teachers would not have the capability of supporting e-learners live with instruction and loading lessons in addition to teaching in-person learning. It takes an immense amount of work to ensure that that's happening effectively. And it's not the model that we decided to do at New Summit. And the online lessons do work. If it is done, we have multiple students who are doing e-learning right now, and they are getting through the lessons, they're enjoying the lessons, they're learning, and they're working with our learning coaches. When they have questions about content, they're reaching out to the learning coach, getting some additional support and instruction there when they're in their office hour and when they've scheduled that, in addition to getting some additional help from the grade level teachers as well. So when we say online lessons don't work, they actually do work. It's a matter of how you are getting through those lessons and how much time you're spending there and what's going on. So
You have another question.
Yep.
It says, how can we go back and look at quizzes? If they go into their, for middle school at least, and it was a middle school question, if they go into their grade book, they can actually pull up the submission and you can review the test questions. But most of the time we have other parents that have already pointed out if there was an issue, and we go through and adjust it, and we look at it and we adjust the kids' scores based off of any issues with questions. I know that that can be challenging, but you can view all the submissions that your kids have made. If you click under your student or grade book, you can view everything that they have answered and what they've submitted, just so you know for future reference. And as far as enrichment materials for middle school, we use iExcel for math and language, and all the kids have a login. Also, I didn't know, I know in the transition, if you reached out for some enrichment things, I wasn't aware, so I do apologize for that. However, iExcel is an amazing tool to build that language skill and that math skill. You can work on concepts individually to meet those gaps and fill them as we are growing. But if you need more enrichment, please reach out to myself or Mrs. Flores, and we can find something to set you up with.
And I'm seeing that in some of the comments too in the chat box, that their teachers did send them some more enrichment stuff when they reached out to their grade level teacher, and they've sent them some more resources through Google Classroom, because we can also load that our eLearner students also have their Google Classroom accounts, and so anything that our general ed teachers are submitting into Google Classroom, your students have access to that information, but they can also send you some enrichment activities and things that if you want to do some extensions, so that's not a problem at all.
And we also have live math lessons once a week per grade level in middle school. So 6th grade has a set time that they get to come on and log on with questions for Ms. Flores. 7th grade has a set time. It is in their
Buzz landing page.
It's in their Buzz landing page, the set times to meet with her. We do it once a week per grade level. She sets time apart just to meet with those kids who are struggling more so in math. Math seems to be the main area of struggle. Just
Awesome. Okay, so for middle school, let me just touch base about middle school real quick, is that parents then only spend about 1 to 3 hours per day working with their student, which may vary based on the student's needs. So every student's needs are different, and some are definitely more independent. I will tell you, I was grasping at straws trying to find an online readiness assessment that I only wish I could have given to families, that we gave always to all of our e-learners, their parents who were choosing to do e-learning full-time pre-COVID, and just to let them know, like, these are the expectations. It takes a lot of work. It's not as easy as I think everybody thinks it is when you first get into it. And so it does, especially in middle school, when they don't have as much support, it can take those middle school students who don't have real good time management skills, who struggle with time management even in class, or struggle with organization in class, or struggle with paying attention and staying focused. Those students will naturally, unfortunately, not be as successful in online learning. And so it will take a lot more work on the parent side in order to help them through that process. It does take students an average of 6 hours of work each day to make sure that adequate progress is made. They have to treat it, and I used to see some kids could still do it in 4 hours. It just, again, it completely depends on the student. A student's level of independence will inform a parent on how much time they need to spend with their child each day. Parents can help them become more independent learner by looking at developing more management skills for them, time management, goal setting. And I will tell you, our middle school team is amazing at helping support that. So if Mrs. Flores or Mrs. Rivera needed to get online with your middle schooler to help them through that process, I know that they have some great tips and tricks to help get them to do that even in online learning. And then the job of the parent is to keep their learner motivated and on track, and helping redirect them when they become distracted. I'm sure you all have seen that multiple times, or your kids have been at home and seeing the distractions, because at home, there is a lot of distractions. As much as we try to limit the distractions for them, it's very easy, even when I work from home, it's easy for me to be like, I'll just put this load of laundry in, I'll do this dish really quick, and before I know it, I've now lost about a half an hour worth of work time because I was too busy doing some other things. So just try to limit as much distractions as possible. All right, so accountability. Log on daily. Remember that Monday through Friday, take attendance daily, maintain adequate progress. Your learning coaches will know what adequate progress looks like, because that's different by grade level. Progress is monitored though by completion of the online curriculum and offline assignments and all assessment and work samples. So that is how we monitor and measure the progress that's being made. You must submit assignments on due dates. We know this is a big difference for everyone, and not everyone chose to be going through a pandemic. And so we know that students and families need some extra time. Just contact your learning coach if you need some extra time. But we really will not go past about 2 weeks because that's going to put a student really far behind, especially if they're coming back to in-person learning. We want to make sure that they're as in sync as possible. Attend your required virtual sessions with your learning coach. be there for the office hours or for the classroom teacher. Our classroom teachers are offering multiple virtual sessions with the whole class for you to connect, and make it a priority. These kids need to be able to get connected with their learning coaches, their teachers, and other students, and so try to make that a priority. Participate in school required beginning of the year, middle of the year, and end of the year testing. We just got done with NWEA. These are not opt-out type of tests. You really can't opt out of these because these are tests that give us benchmark information on what your student knows. And if we don't have a beginning of the year assessment and we get to a middle of the year and they take just a middle of the year, we don't have anything to compare that data with in order to see if your student's grown or if there are gaps that they have that we need to work on with your student, even in an e-learning environment. The beginning of the year testing is pivotal right now, and I can't express how important the beginning of the year testing is for our teachers and our schools. We are starting at a baseline year again because of the COVID slide. We were not able to do an end of the year testing last spring, and so the only testing that we have on our students is from the middle of the year last year. And so you can imagine the amount of information and gaps and content that they may not have gotten, that we know it may just take a little bit of a tweak in order to get those students caught up. So it's imperative that you attend and do the middle of the year testing. You must have a responsible adult supporting the e-learning student that is available throughout the time school is occurring. We have started to see in some cases that students are at home all day by themselves, and then they're doing school at night. I'm going to tell you right now that is not a prime way to do school. We understand that you need to be working. We understand that some families don't have the same supports as others. Please just communicate with us and we'll try to figure out a way to help support you more. But your student to do school only at night can be extremely burdensome on them. They can be tired. The best time some students learn is in the morning. Sometimes it's in the afternoon. But for the most part, trying to get schooling in the evening, you're not going to get the same amount of supports from our school staff personnel because we are done at 4 o'clock each day. And you won't get the same support on the weekend. So I encourage you to find a responsible adult to be home with your child all day so that they can get school done. Improvement plans for attendance, lack of progress, or poor grades, and minimal communication with New Summit staff will begin to occur with me and the learning coach and your grade level teacher. If we see that it's a needed situation, we will have to intervene. So I want to be transparent on that because we care about you and we care about your kids. And we want to make sure that they're improving. Okay, e-learning clarifications, K-5 principal pages. Rochelle, do you want to tell the group how excited you were about the principal pages? If she's there. Hello? Maybe she's off.
Oh, no, I paused my video instead of the mute.
Okay.
No, I just took in a bite, trying to squeeze in my lunch at the same time. Just a second.
Oh, sorry. Catch you off.
Okay. Yeah, I was super excited, like in tears excited, because my parents know that I do a shared drive with them where I share all of the worksheets, but it does take a really long time for me to go through each lesson and pull those worksheets and then save the worksheets and then upload them to my shared drive. So it does take a lot of time. And I was more than willing to do that because I know it make their lives easier and it was super helpful. But having that drive with all of the worksheets, because I was only pulling the ones for the end of the lesson that needed to be submitted. But having all of those worksheets there, it was like, woo! I was very excited. And I've heard a lot of feedback from parents that they were excited to be able to have access to that as well.
Awesome. And I think Christine was just as excited. The look on her face, Christine, you had the same situation, am I right?
Oh my gosh, I was so excited because I spent hours going through and downloading the worksheets and posting them.
So you guys will get access, if you haven't already, for K-5. You will have access to all the printable. It's like in some cases, it's like 600 some pages, but your learning coaches can tell you then which pages you would then pull out. I just encourage you, don't go ahead in all of those because you'll probably end up with access to all of the printable pages. So, but that's a new thing that we found out about when we had a meeting with Colorado Digital Learning Solutions. There's a wonderful parent resource page that had those printables on there. Again, if you don't have a printer at home too, and you need help and access to printing, we can print those pages here as well, and then figure out a time that you can come pick those up. Your gathered needed materials, schedule breaks for your students. Don't have them sit down for 4 hours at a time and try to get through it all. So, but because kids need breaks too, they're used to those breaks here at school. Be patient. If you are working full time, ensure that your student's school is still a priority. So just be patient with them. They're trying to get through this as much as you are. And it's just important to try to be patient through that. We also have some great social emotional learning curriculum that we will begin to load for your students that came from Mrs. Wise. And if your student or you need some access to counseling support, Mrs. Wise is available for all of our e-learning families as well. Let's see, weekly and daily assignments and activities. Not all are graded, but some are, and the learning coach will communicate what will be graded for that unit and lesson. Learning coaches have allowed for flexibility and redos. In K through 5, the clue that there is an assignment in K through 5 is what is my assignment. So if you're curious as to what is the assignment for this lesson, because it'll go through different modules, it'll say, what is my assignment? And that will cue you into, okay, this is an actual assignment that could be graded that my student needs to do. In middle school, isn't it similar? They go through a lesson and then they usually have a quiz at the end and they have like an assignment at the end, don't they?
The ones that I've noticed generally just been a tutorial and quiz.
Okay.
As
So,
in adding.
okay, so most of the middle school curriculum is going through the tutorial and then they have a quiz at the end that is a part of that assignment. So same as middle school there. Any questions in terms of that we're seeing come up in that one? The assignments are due Monday, are tough. I have noticed particularly in ELA for middle, okay? And a lot of this is good feedback for us. I do want to go back to one of these.
I answered that. We accept late submissions, and unfortunately it was kind of preset. So now that Ms. Flores and myself have gone in, second quarter, we're already on top of it. We've already are setting things, changing it. We didn't like the math, so we're going to be loading different things. So we are going to adjust those dates. We always accept late submissions for the week because it is self-paced, and we understand that, but we would like them to make sure they're logging daily though.
Okay. And I see some feedback, and I do appreciate the feedback because we're going to save all this feedback so we can look at if there are, they thought there's a misconception thinking that they thought that there would be more social interaction with other e-learning kids. And so maybe that's something that our learning coaches can start to set up as a weekly sort of session with other e-learning kids to get them connected. And I've seen some other feedback in here that we can talk to the grade level teams about what are some other ways that they can connect the e-learners with their classes. So now that we've been in a quarter, I do appreciate a lot of this feedback because I'm starting to come up with some good ideas in the fact that we can try to connect these kiddos more. So we'll be able to talk about that because I've seen multiple feedback on that. Okay, so the next one, let's go to why we chose this e-learning setup. Mainly when we surveyed multiple families about e-learning before we set it up, the biggest thing that we heard, and then I heard in other sessions throughout the state that I was attending with other principals and other school leaders from all over the even all over the country. We're, as you know, we're a national showcase school for capturing kids' hearts. And I was in different leader calls with other leaders from around the country. The biggest thing that we heard from families when choosing e-learning was they needed more flexibility. They needed flexibility and understanding to know that they could still be self-paced. They wouldn't have to put their kid in front of a screen for multiple hours and watching live instruction online. I will tell you, my own daughter is doing that right now, and it's not effective. She is very frustrated. She loses interest. Because she's just looking at a computer or she's looking at a screen for up to an hour at a time, trying to pay attention. The dog's barking, there's this happening. It is extremely distracting for elementary kids. Maybe when they get to middle school, it's a little bit better. We have a couple staff members who have students who are in other middle schools, and they're like, it's just not paying attention and they're not getting the content. We've even had a couple staff students transfer over here because the e-learning experience in the live sessions has been not as effective as I think they thought. I knew it wouldn't be because of the years of experience that I had. It is not an effective model to put kids in front of a screen and have them watch live all day, or even 30 minutes at a time in a structured model. It can be very, it's very difficult for them. And for their growth development. They need multiple breaks. They need to be able to do it, especially with e-learning. Students need to be able to do it when it meets their needs, even in specific subjects. In an e-learning environment, you may notice that your student may do better in the morning with math. Well, if math isn't in the morning for the in-person learners, they could be falling asleep while they're watching things online. So it's important that you start to really connect with your student to find out when is the best time for them to be even doing certain subjects while they are at home. Usually the hardest subjects should be done always first. Getting that out of the way, they'll have their most focus during that time. Encouraging your students to get up, brush their teeth, brush their hair, get into some clothes, make their bed. You create a routine that's similar to school, but getting them ready and their minds in the frame of mind to get ready for school. We knew that's why we set up the model we did. We wanted to be sure that you had a comprehensive online curriculum that was not developed by our teachers at that time, because our teachers are trying to do in-person learning as well, and to try to take in-person learning and duplicate that in an online environment is not effective. Our in-person kids would lose out for some of that as well. So that's part of the main reason we chose this type of model. It is, again, the comprehensive online curriculum. I will tell you, a lot of families, we've gotten some great feedback from families saying it is really comprehensive. Like, our kids are learning a lot, and it's been rigorous enough that it's not too easy. If it is too rigorous, we're able to adjust it for your student as well. And our learning coaches have been trying to get used to that. We did set it up where our grade level teachers were not having to support the e-learner students 100% of the time either, because they are limited on common planning time. They're limited on the time that they're meeting with their own students, meeting with support services. There's lots of various reasons why we couldn't put that type of expectation on our regular ed teachers. So that's why we have a learning coach to help support you. We do recognize that Mrs. Ortega is teaching only in the morning. Her primary responsibility in the afternoons are to help support you if she's not in any MTSS meetings or any other meetings that she might have in the afternoon. So if there's some needed help there, I know Mrs. Ortega is more than willing to help support you more if that's something that you need. but she is teaching in the morning, so she is not able to meet with families in the morning. Mrs. Ernest is a full-time learning coach, and then our middle school teachers, Mrs. Flores is the TA, and Mrs. Rivera doesn't have as many classes, so that's why she's able to help support you. But if there's grade level content that needs to be supported by the middle school teachers, you'll have to schedule that one-on-one instructional time during their study hall time, or they can try to meet with you before or after school right now. That is the only amount of content that we have in time that we have to do that. We don't have the capacity due to the budget constraints that the state, they did a 5% rescission on state level funding. So I couldn't hire just an entire extra staff for just online learning. And I didn't want to use CDLS teachers because we were asked by our board and by our families to use our own staff so that I had the ability to evaluate our own staff. So that can give you guys some of the reason why we're choosing to do this how we are. Your feedback is valuable though, so as we move through the year, there may be some adjustments that we can make, but we'll go ahead and look at that without a doubt. Any other questions regarding, so here's a parent resource and then I'm gonna go to Q&A. And let me look at all the questions that we have in here really quick so I can make sure I get those covered. You think I've covered everything?
The only thing I noticed was people commenting that that they don't have spelling, but the in-person.
Okay, so that's good feedback. We will ask that the learning coaches work with the grade level coordinators on getting more spelling, the spelling list, the same spelling list that the in-person students are doing. We can definitely get those loaded. I know 5th grade's doing it, and I believe 4th grade was. Christine, do you know which grade levels are doing that?
I don't. I've heard about 3rd grade, but none of the classroom teachers have sent me any spelling lists.
Okay.
Chrissy, look at this.
Say that again.
Why are specials not switching weekly?
Oh, because of the, so specials do not switch weekly because our specials teachers are completely overloaded, to be honest with you, and they can't support the e-learning content online as well. And our learning coaches, I don't feel are prepared to give as much specials support. So I do know that our music teacher, and Christine, do you want to talk about what Joey's been talking about in terms of getting some music on board? And then we maybe can look at some of the art lessons that we can just open up for you guys to do if you want to do some more art, but it wouldn't be graded.
Yeah, so I was planning on switching specials from PE to art after fall break. But as far as music goes, there is no music class in Buzz, so our music teacher, Joey, is having to basically create one. So he's gonna have to record some videos and things, and we found some stuff online, but nothing that he really loves. So he's really starting from scratch and having to create videos to upload them for music.
Okay, awesome. And then there was a question here, can we do PE on our own? Absolutely. Like I have a swimmer, so if I was doing e-learning, she'd be going to swimming every day and that's her PE. If you wanted to, the learning coaches can actually give you an activity log and then you can just log the activity and then they can input the grade for PE there. And then will we supply art supplies? No, we don't have enough art supplies to be able to do that. So if there are some things that as you get into art, I don't know that it's requiring other than things like maybe watercolors or markers or crayons and so forth. So whatever the materials are, they're things that are common household items that you would be using. Same with any science stuff that we have middle schoolers doing with science. It's usually any household kitchen items that you have and so forth. But we don't have extra materials in order to provide that to our e-learning families at this time. They don't have to, So I'm hearing a lot about PE. That sounds great. We will definitely, I love this feedback. So we will see if we will switch to art. How about we switch to art after fall? Does that sound good, everybody? All right. Usually when you have, I know there's a question here, we need a heads up on supplies. That's why as the parent, you look forward in a couple of the lessons, and that's a part of getting prepared for the week's lessons. I used to tell my online families, you know, kind of take a Sunday afternoon, start to look through some of the lessons that your students are going to be doing, put everything in like a specific tub for each student that has the materials that they're going to need so that they can just pull those very quickly as a part of your prep work that you need to do for the online modules. All right. Oh, they don't load until Sunday night. Huh. Okay. Stephanie, what grade level is that?
Fourth grade.
Fourth grade. Okay. So Mrs. Ernest, are you doing, you're usually loading on Fridays though, aren't you?
Typically, I start loading on Fridays and then I unhide them on Sunday night.
So maybe should we reconsider that since they might be doing prep work on Sundays?
Yeah, definitely, especially because some of the science experiments do require supplies.
Okay, then that's great feedback. Thank you, Stephanie. I appreciate that. And Google Classroom stuff loaded earlier than Sunday. Could you be specific, Kaylee? Or Mrs. Shebel?
Like some of my, like we've really struggled using the two platforms, and so I have started sitting down with them on Sundays and getting everything into the planners, and I just want to make sure that, like, as I'm assuming we're going to switch to science and stuff this next quarter, I just want to make sure that everything is loaded with enough time for us to prepare.
Okay, I will give that feedback because I know middle school had to jet because they were doing conferences as well. So I will give them that feedback that is on Friday. It would be best to make sure that they have everything loaded. Unfortunately, some teachers, because they're so overloaded right now, they're trying to get work done on the weekends as well, which we don't like. But it is the nature of the beast right now with the pandemic that we're in. So. All right, so we can keep, for those families who like PE, we can keep PE on there still too, because some people still really enjoy putting the videos on and so forth. So, so I hope that this was helpful for you all. I know we're a little over time, but I hope that this was helpful and it was gave you guys more of a clear picture. It's great that we're already a quarter in. People are starting to get in to this new rhythm of how to do e-learning. And I just encourage you to reach out to us. Again, I'm going to download all this chat, look at it, make sure that if there are some areas where we have the ability to adjust, we are more than happy to do that to make your experience better and make our experience more successful for you as well. And then we have here, do we know a date we need to let in about returning? Do you mean returning to in-person, Mrs. Murdoch? Okay, so we have been doing, this is one thing we have been doing at this quarter, as the quarter ends, if there is an interest in some of you returning to in-person learning, we are allowing students to return at quarter instead of semester. So if there is a want or a need to do it before semester, you're welcome to do so. You just need to let your learning coach know and let Amanda Roderick know, because our new quarter begins on, Jamie, isn't it the 26th, I think? October 26th.
I believe so. I'm checking my calendar real quick.
Almost certain. Stephanie's
3rd is the last day and our new one starts on the 26th.
Yeah, so we do need to know as soon as possible because we'll have another week of transition that lasts once we get back from fall break. And remember, fall break is the time for you to just get caught up. If you're feeling like I'm so behind, I've been trying to figure this stuff out, you can still make up work over fall break. We'll have one more week and then the quarter ends on the 23rd. And we have a few families who have asked to come back at quarter, and we're making those exceptions. We just need the information from you ahead of time. Okay? No, you do not need to record attendance during fall break because we are closed. Good question, Stephanie. Thank you. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. I can't thank you enough for your patience and your just understanding as we've all tried to navigate this time, and just know we're here to support you. We're here to listen, and we're here to try to make this as seamless as possible for all of you, and you have a wonderful, wonderful fall break. Okay? All right. Thank you, everybody.